How the heretics. So we have Heather Rant and a part of a dog in the background. So you were disfellowshipped after the elders hacked your email with the help of your sister and your brother. But why did you become a Jehovah Witness and such a bad Jehovah Witness that the elders needed to punish you that way?
I don't think I ever actually wanted to be a Jehovah's Witness. I kind of got bullied into that. You could call me a problematic teenager. I didn't really get into anything big, but I hung out with a lot of people who did do big things. I personally didn't do it, but my dad was trying to get that under control. He didn't like it. He didn't like that I was a secretive kid. He did not like that I was pretty self-sufficient, like I could pay for things. So they were we were very heavily monitored and surveilled as children. When that wasn't working, he went to, we'll call him the emperor. This dude was like basically the lead elder in the congregation. He had 3 or 4 sons that were also ministerial servants, starting from the age of 9.
You grew up in a congregation with a dominant elder that we should not mention by name, so we call him emperor.
Yes, we're going to call him the emperor.
Not an elder?
What's that?
Your father was not an elder?
There's other reasons for that.
An elder?
Was
it his secret dream?
What was that?
Did he want to be an elder? Was it his secret dream because he really were auditioning for the part?
I think he wanted to be an elder. He tried to be.
Yeah.
But there's some things in his history that kind of precluded him from that. It's a whole ball of wax, but he couldn't be an elder. He was very, very close. He made himself very close with this emperor, the lead elder. But when they would sit and talk to me frequently. I had 2 formal reproofs with this elder and my father about different things before I got baptized. And yet they still pushed me to be baptized. And then within 6 months, I was disfellowshipped. It was like looking back, it feels like it was a whole conspiracy to try and get, probably a typical teenager, but a little bit wild in perspective of a Jehovah's Witness, trying to get this typical teenager back under their thumb.
It sounds to me like your father really, I never met him, but it sounds to me like he really, really, really wanted to be an elder. And he can't be an elder when someone living under his roof is being reproved. So,
oops. Oh, sorry.
You were reproved twice. That means you peed on his parade, And he can't be an elder unless we manage to solve the problem by getting you baptized as one of Jehovah Witnesses, happiest day of your life. And then when it didn't work because you're still a sinful person that wants to do nasty thing, we need to dump you as soon as possible.
Cut off the bad thing.
I listened to your story many times, and it seems like this emperor elder had a really tight control of the congregation, but he also had your father by the balls. Because if you want to be an elder, you need to take care of your household and make sure that everything works fine.
And my dad was that typical, I don't want to call it narcissistic. That's a whole diagnosis that requires a professional license that I don't have. But he did the typical thing where he found the person in charge and kind of attached to them. They were his mentor. Now, later on, after everything went south and he realized he messed up, they had a falling out. But it was too late at that point.
But how do you know that they hacked your email? Because it sounds like a conspiracy theory. How do you know?
Because they had the whole stack of printed emails. Like an obsessive level of time was spent on this. It was multiple years worth of emails. It was
you walked into a judicial meeting. You walked into a judicial meeting with 2 plumbers and a window cleaning. The 3 Jehovah Witness elders, and they
You're not far off from the truth, honestly.
Huh?
You're not far off from the truth, honestly.
Yeah, but they had printed out your email. And all 3 elders had their copies?
Oh, they didn't have copies. There was one copy. So what happened was I got up to go to the meeting after I was at work that Saturday night. So I came home, went to bed, woke up, got ready to go to the meeting. And my mom is pissed. She wouldn't tell me anything. But my dad's like, you're riding with me separate to the meeting. And he's like, listen, we know all this. We got into your email and you're going to tell that you're going to go talk to these elders or I will. I'm like, okay, fine. It's like, I don't know exactly what I'm in trouble for. But like, he's like, I know that you're doing this and that, whatever. And you kept giving a ride to this one dude home from work and like all this stuff, which is a whole nother ball of wax. Like everybody's out to get you. It's sick. Like they were in true crime before it was a thing. But like, he's like, you need to go talk to Brother Emperor or else I will. And I'm like, okay. And I was all like scared and nervous. I didn't know what was going on. Like I already felt terrible at myself. I was like in this massive state of depression.
Wonder why?
Gee, I couldn't tell you. But like, I hated myself. I hated everything that I was. I didn't like the situation I was in. I had just found like I was taking Spanish in high school, and I knew enough to get through the meeting and understand it. So I would go to the Spanish meeting. I would go in service with Spanish. I was excited about things like this is what I'm supposed to do. I finally found a community that is happier in this thing that I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
So I was like devastated. Like I'm finally
Spanish
doing
congregations are fun normally.
Huh?
They're more fun, the Spanish congregations.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But I was like so excited, and then like I was telling my mom about it when she wouldn't talk to me, and she's just like angry, like they're going to teach me how to dance and all this stuff. I finally get to do all this fun stuff, and they wouldn't talk to me. So we get through the meeting. I go to talk to Brother Emperor, and he's like, okay. He's like, give me about 10 minutes. So my dad's kind of hanging around like 3 steps away, just surveilling me, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, and he's kind of hanging around like 3 steps away, and we end up in this room, and I'm like, why do we need 2 other elders? Not just one. Because that's what they do with council.
Yeah.
And immediately I was terrified. Like I didn't know what was going on. So
they just went from your father tell Brother Emperor
that we need to talk.
And then straight to judicial meeting.
Immediately, yeah. Like this is almost planned out. Like there's automatically 2 other elders. And then after we get settled into the meeting, my mom and my dad are in the back, like 3 rows behind me in this room. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? So of course, anxious, depressed me, I'm starting to fall apart, and we start going over things. You know, like, what did you do? And who saw? What were you wearing? Of course, what were you wearing? All this stuff. What kind of stuff are you doing at work? Are you willing to quit your job? All this stuff. And then like, my dad's like, I can hear my dad tell my mom something, and she leaves the room for a second and comes back in a minute or 2 and hands my dad this stack of papers. And I'm like, what? And he walks up to the elders, and he's like, she's not telling you everything. Here's this stack of papers this big. I don't know if I mentioned this part yet. Huh?
What was that?
A stack of emails, like years worth of emails.
Like inch thick?
It was pretty thick. It was about like that. It was a lot. Like that took some commitment.
But the thing is, how did the elders react to that? Did they react like this is a violation of privacy?
Nope.
They accepted it.
Yes.
Even though I suppose it's a federal crime to do that to a grown-up. Hack their email.
But they had a meeting that you need to know what's going on in your household. Like, check their phone, check their email. You need to know. You are responsible for what's going on in your household. So that was the license to my dad to go through it. When they couldn't get into my email, they had my sister help answer the security questions.
Yeah, because when we meet Watchtower in court, they always blame the elders, the parents, or the victim. But you know what? They are in charge of it because they had a talk where they tell parents that you need to know. And then when your father hacked your email or something like that, they accept the fruit of that labor. So it's really sneaky. They say that, oh, we don't know what's happening, because there was JW Broadcasting with a Mexican-looking family. Hope that's not it's political correct to say. They look like Latinos, and the kid leaves the truth, and they take his phone and look at his phone, and the narrator say, we needed to know what was going on. So they do that. They tell the parents, you should check their email, check their messages, and we will accept the fruit of your labor. To me, it's I don't know the English word, but when you solicit someone else to do a crime, that's also a crime, isn't it?
Kind of like an accomplice or by proxy or something.
Yeah.
But the only thing...
What did your sister told you something later?
She was feeling really, really guilty. That's how I found out how they got into my email. She was feeling really guilty because they couldn't figure it out, and she was the one, because she was the goody two shoes. Like, she was 16 years old and pioneer school and all this stuff. She was the one that gave them the password, not the password, but the answer to my security questions so they can get in.
Yeah.
Like,
name of pet,
name of my favorite pet. At that time, it was a Labrador that was like wildly intelligent. Her name was Sandy. And I spelled it a particular way because I didn't like the common name. So she helped them. And she felt bad. She said that my being disfellowshipped and then the things that people said to her after that were what broke the spell that they had on her.
So she was the pioneer at the time, and then she left? Ah, good.
Yep.
It's kind of worth it then.
I mean, yeah. I mean, she went through a lot of her own trauma too, getting through that, because she had kind of an identity crisis as part of that. But when you have such a heavy influence, such an integral part of your personality, it's interwoven, it's enmeshed into your personality. That's a hard thing to get out of. But apparently she had one of the other teenagers in the congregation was killed in a car accident, and that lady walked up to her after they announced me. She's like, I feel so bad for your parents, because I would rather lose my child in death than to lose my child spiritually.
Yeah.
Like, there's a chance of coming back spiritually. But this is what she told my sister the night I was disfellowshipped, the night I was announced. And that's sad.
Yeah, I had an uncle that died. He was a Jehovah Witness and committed suicide. And my aunt, she would always say, as long as there's life, there's hope. It's a Scandinavian saying. We say that, as long as there's life, there's hope. Mm-hmm. But then when her daughter left the truth, she said, I can't say that anymore. So she compared losing her husband in death to losing her daughter, that she actually didn't lose. She just don't believe in her mother's, what do you call it? Superstition. Mm-hmm. So my daughter don't believe in my superstition. And she actually thought, I used to think that death was the worst that could happen, but it's not. My daughter not believing in this.
Not believing in the octopus. That's the worst thing.
It's so weird.
It's sad.
But you got disfellowshipped after them reading your email. Do you
Oh
know
yeah,
what
he gave it to
you
him.
got disfellowshipped for?
I'm not
What
even
was it?
100% sure what my actual charge was, to be honest. Basically, they kept insisting that based on these emails, because I was pandering to all these different groups, all these different types of people,
Yeah.
like I didn't actually do anything, but I was talking with them and like just trying to fit in. So they decided that based on the emails and the fact that I felt so guilty, which was technically depression, like medical levels of depression, severe, like I had to not be telling them something, which meant that I was certainly not, what is it, repentant.
But what about Jehovah? Couldn't Jehovah find out
Why
this thing?
couldn't
It's
they
like
leave? If they leave pedophiles
Jehovah
in
sees
Jehovah's hands, I don't
everything,
know
but
why they
we will
couldn't leave
hack the
my happy
email.
little butt in Jehovah's hands. Like, don't, that sounded so weird. But you know what I mean. They could have left my situation in Jehovah's hands, but they'll leave a
Yeah,
pedophile in Jehovah's hands.
yeah.
Their priorities are a little skewed.
It's like if it needed, if so, I don't believe in Jehovah. I'm not an atheist, but I don't believe in Jehovah. But when I did, why would I hack someone's email to find information that I could tell Jehovah that I have? It should be the other way around. That if something needed to be revealed, he will do it if necessary.
Why does he
I
have to
would not
hack
have to
email?
try.
Like,
But
yeah.
in your congregation, it was very much the opposite. And you said you had the sons of this elder emperor, call him emperor for political reasons, so he will not sue us. That's not his real name. But so let's call him elder emperor.
Mm-hmm.
He had children and they were assigned to follow you.
Yeah, like there was two, if I saw them 2 times, there was probably other times they were following me home. But one time was really, really evident. Like I left the meeting and of course like I said, I should have never been baptized. But like I left the meeting and I went to go meet this guy that I was talking to, and we were going to meet up at a gas station that was near his house. So I went to go hang out with him a little bit before I went home. And it was just like hanging out in a parking lot. We didn't even sit in the car, but like I went to go hang out with him for a little bit before I went home. And next thing I know, this little pearl colored Impala pulls up. I'm like, that looks familiar. And then like right away, these two people pop out in their suit and tie, adjusting it and then walking into the store. Like look right at me, adjusting their ties, walking right in. Like I'm pretty sure this is like right before I got baptized too. Like this is why I'm saying, like looking back, this is a whole conspiracy. But like there are other times where you'd see like an elder, just like you're out in public and you just see him just kind of standing there looking at you. Like it's unnerving. But like I am pretty certain that he sent his sons after me, because he sent two. You need two witnesses. Two of these guys got out of the car.
Yeah.
When I went to go meet dude.
Yeah, they do a lot of spying. So I'm working now with GDPR because Watchtower violate that. And the funny thing is, because you at part of this story were a minor, and how they treat minors is, as much thing Jehovah Witnesses do, illegal. And if you're an elder in Europe and you follow Watchtower's direction, you should be aware that you commit a crime, and Watchtower blame you. It's your fault. They write, we have nothing to do with this. We just give them directions and they choose to follow that. So if someone's going down, they're pushing on the elders. But when you were okay, I don't have the elders book in English. I didn't do my homework here. But when you were, what do you call it? As a reproved? Yeah, reproved. I'm sorry, I'm tired now, so my English is wobbly. When you were approved, they have, according to the elders book, a message to the congregation, like a special need, where they make everyone aware that someone is a bad person without mentioning your name. That's slander, But they don't mention your name for legal reasons. And why don't they? If they would trust Jehovah and Jehovah wants someone to be slandered, why don't they slander them? That's what Paul did. I don't believe in the religion, but they do, and I don't like the fact that they are cowards. Because if you read the Bible, if Paul needed to slander someone by name, he did. So Watchtower, when they say, "Oh, we have to follow direction and slander someone," well, not by name, because we're not brave as Paul. So on one hand, I'm angry at them for being such a hypocrite and not being brave enough to slander someone. On the other hand, I'm glad they don't, because it's a stupid religion, it's all made up, and they shouldn't slander anyone.
Yeah. And they do keep record of, I'm pretty sure they do keep record of it. I think at least in prior elders books, I haven't been able to confirm it in this new one, but in prior elders books, they keep it documented. But when I was in my judicial committee and I had been reproved twice as a teenager, he gave me like the recent months that I had been reproved. He's like, "You've been doing so good." And I'm like, "Well, I just haven't gotten caught, or you haven't been."
But the thing is,
he gave me the months that I got, like, you were reproved in like March, or you were reproved in July.
Yeah. But do you remember when they had a marking talk or something like? Do you remember it?
Oh, hold on. I wasn't reproved as a disfellowshipped or as a baptized publisher. I was counseled, but they keep record of the counsel too, because those were the ones that he referenced when he told me which months that I had already been counseled.
Okay, because if you read the elders book, if a child that's not been baptized commits a serious sin, they will have an announcement without mentioning the name, which is slandering. And like I said, I'm angry for two things. One, they don't believe their own religion. Two, they do believe their own religion. But after that, it says that they should keep a notification of this. So that means that a person that never been baptized, that commits a sin, that's what young people do, can still have a file in the Watchtower article. So if a 15-year-old have sex and has to describe this to 3 grown men, which is, it's improper. It's a crime against a child. And even if you believe in the stupid religion, why should 3 grown men listen to filth?
No, it almost sounds like child pornography to a point. Like,
what?
It almost sounds like child pornography to a point. Like,
yeah.
Like, it's not legal to have smut that involves children. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah. But then they keep a note on this indefinitely. So if I would come back to Jehovah, they would have to look in the archive and see what information do we have. And it's such a lack of faith, because if this stupid religion was right, it's not. But if it was right, why would they need an archive? Wouldn't it be like, Jehovah, it's the goat guy again? No. Sorry, we can't reinstate you. You're an apostate. Why would they need an archive if they have Jehovah?
That's what I'm saying. Like,
Jehovah, goat guy? No. That's a hard no.
Yeah. And I just found out today that, like, even if you're suspected of wrongdoing, like, you don't have to be charged or, in a judicial committee or anything. But if you're guilty of or suspected of wrongdoing and you happen to go to another area, they're supposed to give them your information and say that you're in the area.
Yep.
Like, it's a whole, like, miniature government. Like,
if I move as a disfellowship person, they don't refer to me as a disfellowship brother, I'm a person. So if I'm a disfellowship person, they should not send the confidential archive, which means they do have a confidential archive. They should not send the confidential archive. They should send my name and my address and things that the new congregation would like to know. And who gave them the right to send this information to that congregation? But then the funny thing is that when we have this probe now in Norway, and I'm the plaintiff, so it's an official probe, Watchtower say that, well, they say we don't have a confidential archive, but if there were, it's the elders' responsibility, not Watchtower. It's such a
Yeah, they're the ones that gave
weak
them the form
excuse.
numbers and everything, but it's the elders.
But what I wrote is, how can it be the elders, the shepherd of flock book say that this congregation should send the following to the next congregation? So how can the congregation that is the recipients of this be responsible? Watchtower tell this congregation to send it to them. They just receive a letter. And it's Watchtower that orchestrated. But I remember as a kid that it was announced. I can remember two things. I don't remember the address or the date because I was a child and I'm very old now, so it's a long time ago. But I remember in one case there was a disfellowshipped person, a brother, and we should not knock at the door, but we should keep a look at, stake out his house and see if he had a girlfriend, because it was very important for the elders in the old congregation. So as a child, me and my brother, we would, be looking, try to see into windows if he had a girlfriend. And I remember he looked out at us and didn't like it. He looked grumpy. And I thought, that's how worldly apostates are. They are grumpy. But now I see it from his perspective, because he moved away from his hometown in Sweden to a different place, trying to start a new life. And bang, then he has Jehovah Witnesses circling his house and scared Jehovah. Can you imagine how I looked when I was, because you have a body language you're not aware of, especially not when you're a child. So me and my brother were standing with literature, looking at him like this.
Oh, God.
Trying to see if he had a girlfriend. And, he knew that we were victim. So I don't think no one's angry at a child, but he was not happy with me and my young brother. Be like, and I tried to, because I was this nice kid, I meant well. So I would kind of hold up the literature like this, so maybe he would be reminded about paradise and change his wicked ways. So I was little. So when I was looking at him, I was literally standing like this, pretending not to be a Jehovah Witness while hoping he would see a picture of paradise. But it's such a huge violation of privacy, and the witnesses would send kids to spy on a grown man to see what he was doing with his, not literally with his genitals, but that's what they care about, if his ex is free to remarry.
They did the same thing to
spying on to see if he has a girlfriend or not.
When my grandfather got remarried, this woman was nuts. I'm sorry, she's nuts, but they wanted to make sure that my grandfather could get remarried. So they started staking out her house, my dad and somebody else, because he had to have somebody with him if anything did happen.
So they were staking out her house.
Mm-hmm.
That's also in the elders book. So if you've never been a Jehovah Witness, I can explain it works like this. So person A cannot divorce person B. No, you cannot. Person A, it's complicated. Person A cannot get a divorce and get married to person B, but person A can fuck person B and get married to person C. It's called to be free to remarry. So therefore they need to stake out person B. It's really complicated, but person B might never be a Jehovah Witness. So if you read the elders book, this is described what she said here. So you need circumstantial evidence, and it said how it should be done, that two people should stake out the house of the person that's suspected to have a boyfriend or girlfriend. So, and it says, if I spend the whole night with a person of the opposite sex or a known homosexual. So imagine if my ex-wife would be staking out my house. That means my ex would be standing outside my house with a friend, and she would have to see me entering my house with a woman and then wait the whole night with the thermals until me and the lady leaves in the morning, and then she's free to remarry. And that's a crime, staking out. But now the funny thing is, it also says that if I spend the night with a known homosexual, so let's say I get lucky and I bring home a known homosexual, and my wife and my ex-wife and her friend are staking out the house, And then they say, we have evidence that I'm free to remarry because he spent a night with a known homosexual, which I actually did. I never had sex with him, but I have a friend that's a homosexual, and he spent a few
Strong
nights in my
circumstantial
house.
evidence, though.
Yeah, so that would actually cause it. I have no problem with gay, obviously not. I have a lot of gay friends that actually did stay the night in my house. So the rule is stupid by itself. You know what?
Right.
It doesn't make me homosexual that I have a homosexual friend.
Right.
But anyway,
Like they're still people.
yeah.
Like there's nothing different about them.
Yeah. Actually, I
And
spent
their
2 nights
preference
with
doesn't have any
homosexual
impact on
friends.
my preference.
That doesn't make
So
me homosexual. But anyway, the point is now, imagine this scenery that my ex and another Jehovah Witness lady are staking out my house. They are following the direction in the Elders book. And that's what they have
they're trying to get
do
their 2
in
witnesses.
order to get their Watchtowers approved of to get married. And it's described how they do it. And no one can live without love. So in this case, they would force your grandpa or my ex to be staking out my house because they need the information. But if that case that I would enter the house with a known homosexual, and she goes back to the elders and say, I'm free to remarry because we have 2 witnesses that he staked out that he had spent the night with a known homosexual, then their first question would be, well, who's the name of the known homosexual? And they say his name is Bob. And they say,
So
can
how
you
would they
prove
even
that
know his name either? Like,
how do you know that he's a known homosexual? Well, then they would have to have a file on him. So now it gets complicated because according to the Elders book, if you, let's say a woman wants to become a Jehovah Witness and get married, then it says she might not be free to remarry just because she was divorced before she started studying. She still have to prove that she's free to remarry. So imagine if you would get married when you're 18 years old, you get a divorce from your boyfriend, your husband, when you're 19 years old, and then when you are 65 years old, you want to be a Jehovah Witness and marry another Jehovah Witness. Then you actually have to stake out your ex-husband that you divorced when you were 19. You haven't met him in like 100 years, but still you have to stake out his house.
yeah,
And
like I was just reading that
let's say
chapter
that
today
he's
in
living
the Elder book, and it's insane.
Yeah, but let's say he's living in a country where that's not gay friendly. You know, there are places where homosexuality is a crime that punishable. So, and you have to stake out his house and make a note of him staying with a known homosexual, and this known homosexual also need to be named. So even if you never ever had anything to do with Jehovah Witnesses, that you married, you were divorced when you were 19, and then 100 years later, this person that you haven't had contact with for 40 or 50 years wants to become a Jehovah Witnesses, the elders will send her back in time to stake out her ex-husband. It's such a huge violation of privacy law, and it's a crime.
There's a lot of what they do that's a massive boundary violation.
I spoke to the local elders here and say, I'm going to take this to court. And as your friend or former friend, I see that some of them as friends still, I want you to know I'm going to take this to court. I push for charges, and Watchtower are blaming you. They are blaming you for doing what they tell you to do. And I remember the elder looked at me and said, yeah, I'll take my chances. So I'm not a bad guy. I gave them a fair warning. I warned him many times. Three times. I explained this to him, and he said, yeah, we'll take our chances. Because they are naive. They believe Watchtower do everything legal.
But they don't. They don't. Like, even when they say they do, they don't. Like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, this is a good thing here. I can't help thinking that the almighty creator of the universe would have more important things to be concerned with. Yeah, Almighty Bob does have more things to. It's such a stupid thing to care about all these stupid rules they have.
That, like, how many people have to live by?
Yeah. So I would like to have some people here that have this have been staking out other people's home, or that know that other people have been staking out their home. I would like, if you have been doing that and you would like to confess to this and help me document it, because it's good for my activism to have some stories that actually have been staking out someone else, or have been an elder committee asking someone to stake out store. All this, like actual stakeout. If anyone be involved with that, please contact Good Luck Personality, and we can document the story. We tell the story on a live stream, because it's so weird. People don't believe in it when you tell them, and the Watchtower deny it, even if it's black and white in the Elders book.
Yeah, it happens. Like, they do it.
Yeah. So when you got disfellowshipped, did they stop spying on you?
No.
No? Why not?
No.
Because
No.
I think they say that when you're disfellowshipped, that will leave you in the hands of Satan.
Mm-hmm.
They did?
No.
They didn't say
No,
it.
I was at a friend's house. I went to go say hello to a friend, and there was a guy there. Of course, I'm devastated about my life right now. So I found this guy that was like, took advantage of like the fact that I was in a really bad spot, and we were just hanging out and sitting on the sofa in this room in a development. But one of the elders that was on my committee was a repair tech. So I guess he saw my vehicle, because I turned around. I heard something. I turned around, and through the little window next to the door, I see this fool smirking. And I'm like, my eyes get huge. And the dude turns around and walks away. And I'm like, I don't even know. Like, these people just wrecked my life. Like, I don't even know what to do. Like, I am just devastated about everything. Like, he saw my car, walked through the driveway, through all the cars that were there, and peeked in the freaking window. He did not. He was looking in the window.
The detours on the way to meetings to check out cars at people's houses is common. Yeah, it's a lot of spying. Like, God sees everything, but he needs some help. It's such a ridiculous concept. If you believe in God, why would you do this spying? But in this story you told, you were already disfellowshipped.
Freshly disfellowshipped, yes.
Yeah. And I know some, I don't know if it's because I never been disfellowshipped for real. They just did it behind my back.
Mm-hmm.
Really cowardly, actually. But I think some elders say when you're disfellowshipped, they say, I don't know if they're supposed to say it, but I know some do that. We'll leave you in the hands of Satan.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what they
still
believe.
Very much spying on you.
Even if they did leave you in the hands of Satan, they were still spying on you. So you see the elders peeping in through the window when you're visiting what they assume to be a boyfriend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they want to make sure that they have. They want to make sure that when you've repented, it's legitimate. Like, they don't stop spying on you. You still have things to overcome. Like, part of your reinstatement is kind of like, you know, they're not supposed to really go over in detail what you've done, but part of what you've done since you've been disfellowshipped comes up, and they want to know if you're telling the truth, and part of that is continued surveillance.
Stian says, I was guilty of spying and tracking down sinners by using my CB radio, and they were disfellowshipped. Yeah, I don't really know what a CB radio is, but
it's like the trucker's radio, like you see on TV.
Okay.
They used to be pretty common. So you can
Okay.
talk to other people nearby. Usually, it's still commonly used by people who drive trucks.
Okay.
But it used to be something that a lot of people
Like
had.
Smokey and the Bandit.
Yeah, exactly. But whew, yeah.
Yeah. Have I done any spying? I can actually tell you something. Where I was at, it was so weird. Back in I was in a Spanish congregation, and they pointed at the house and said, "Well, first of all, we had a list of everyone that was Latino.
Oh, that's
That
sad.
itself is a crime."
Yes.
Because in Europe, afterward, the Nazis, they used to make a list of people's ethnicity, like you're Sami, you're Finnish, you're French, you're Jewish was a big thing for them. So after World War II, in most European countries, it's been super illegal to
I don't
make a
think it's
list
like that
of
here,
someone's
unfortunately.
ethnicity. So
It's considered unethical, but not illegal here, I'm pretty
yeah,
sure.
but in Europe, it's super illegal because of our history. And still, we have a list of all Latinos. So that's a crime by itself, even by old standards. So we're walking around with what I now know to be an illegal list that we were making, and we were told to make. And then he said, we have a Latina name here, but she's a Jehovah Witness, and she's living with a man. But the way we do things is that as long as you don't identify as a Jehovah Witness, no one in the territory knows that she's a Jehovah Witness. And she moved from Telemark. Actually, I knew her family.
Oh, they know where I live.
Yeah. Huh?
They know where I live. They sent a letter to my husband. Not me.
To witness to him.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so they told me that this lady, she used to be Jehovah Witness, and she's not disfellowshipped. She's living in sin. But since no one in the territory know that she's a Jehovah Witness, she doesn't identify as a Jehovah Witness. We will not disfellowship her unless she starts going to the meeting. So if you meet her, please try to encourage her to go back to the meetings, because then we can disfellowship her.
Oh, that's like they pushed me to get baptized so they could disfellowship me. So,
yeah, I was actually asked to encourage her to go to meetings. Like, we are missing you at the meetings, just so we can disfellowship her. Because according to the rule, if a person is fading, you shouldn't disfellowship them. So the elders were kind of doing the nice thing in a very weird way. I remember they told about another sister, and they said that there's a disfellowship sister living here. The problem is that every time she do a minor mistake, she feels sorry about it, and she tells everyone, I smoked one cigarette, and she tells everyone, and then she tells the elder. And we would like just to say, it's okay, you made a small mistake, but because she tells everyone and it's publicly known, we have to disfellowship her. So it's really not a big thing she does, but she tells everyone. So we wish she didn't have such a strong conscience.
Moral compass, yeah.
Yeah. It would be better if she would just do some mistakes and be okay with it. So she was basically disfellowshipped for having too much repentance. So she was just disfellowshipped because she told everyone she smoked a cigarette. And that's basically what you're supposed to do in the Bible. You should admit your wrongdoings. But the elder said, we wish she would stop admitting her wrongdoings, but we have to disfellowship her just because otherwise people would wonder why she's not disfellowshipped. It's such a hypocrisy.
That was one thing I did do. I smoked cigarettes.
You did?
I did. And that was in the emails too.
We're going to end this live stream now. We have a sinner. No, but okay, so I think tobacco is disgusting, but it's not the end of the world if people try it. It's stupid. It smells bad. I would never do it, but
Oh yeah, like after I quit, it's like nothing I want anything to do.
Someone smoke one cigarette. One cigarette will not kill you. Disfellowshipping actually have historically killed a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So where's it's very Pharisaical.
Exactly. And like the power dynamic in these situations is just astronomically off. Like the amount of entitlement they have to break boundaries and to invade your boundaries and your privacy is just insane. Like staking people out, or staking out homes, staking out workplaces. Like my dad used to sit outside my job. Like my section of the restaurant had a whole bunch of windows. He used to sit out for hours and watch me working to make sure nothing was going on.
While you were working in a diner?
Well, it wasn't a diner. It was a restaurant, but yes.
So they were sitting outside watching.
Mm-hmm.
I remember
watching me work for hours.
When my ex left me, they were staking out my house, but I knew their schedule because, believe it or not, I used to be a Jehovah Witness. So their schedule is kind of, so it's like, okay, it's Friday on a Circuit Overseer week, and then they'll be here. And then, Saturdays, and well, which day they would come. So I would just go up in the forest and I would sit there with my camo and binoculars and watch them staking out my house.
Oh,
so they're walking around the house looking in through the windows, and I'm sitting 50 meters away with my camo and my binoculars looking at them.
Oh God. I know, like when I was at my parents' house
to take pictures. And sometimes I was sitting like a moron in the forest staking out my own house and they didn't show up. And I think, like, why am I doing this? Why did I grow up
because
in this?
They've gaslit you into making out in the forest like staking out my own reality.
For them to stake out my house.
Yeah.
It's like the Cold War, but stupider.
Well, even as an adult, though, like that whole privacy thing wasn't a thing. Like I wasn't in meetings. I had no intention of going back. I accidentally left my phone at my dad's shop. He had a shop fixing cars, and like my phone was up on a shelf. The shelf was at like this level. It was in a window. And they tried blaming my toddler for locking me out of my phone for 15 minutes because somebody tried too many times to like get into my phone. Like they were trying to do this stuff all over again. And I don't know why. Well, I didn't know why until I found out they were trying to take my kid from me because I was going to get him killed in Armageddon.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that one. They wouldn't charge me rent either because for some reason that was a legal loophole. It's not, I don't think it's a real thing. I think my dad just tried to overanalyze the law, but like he wouldn't.
When you say law now, you mean the Jehovah Witness stupid internal rules? I
guess. I don't know. For some reason, not charging me rent meant that he could search my room as an adult, as a 20-some-odd-year-old adult.
Yeah. So you live with your parents, but
when I left my son's father, that was a domestic abuse situation. They did let me move back in, but part of that was them trying to take my son from me because I was going to get him killed in Armageddon.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't a member of good standing.
Your father, well, they still want to spy on you, but according to Jehovah Witnesses, when you're living under his roof, he can control you because you're you're a woman and you're living under his roof, and that means that he's in charge. So
that meant he needed to be able to search my room.
Because I can't think that's an American thing that just because you're living under his roof, he can go through your stuff like legally. But I'm not a lawyer.
No, I mean, there's still some conservative fundamentalist type groups that believe that, but in general, that's not really like opening your door and talking to you is one thing. But like actually going in your room and searching, like I never kept a journal because they would start talking about things I put in a journal. I never left my phone on. All my phones, everything had locks on it. I didn't stay signed into anything. You had to log into my computer with the great big long password. You had to log into my email with the long password because I couldn't trust anybody in there. I could have a conversation and have to go like drive somewhere and hope they didn't follow me. Like I used to be able to, like, you could hear, like when you have PTSD, you tend to have hypervigilance. So you have like supersonic hearing. And I could hear the carpet crunching outside of my room pretty regularly if I was talking on the phone. It could be 2 o'clock in the morning. If I'm having a bad time and I find somebody who wants to talk, there's carpet crunching outside my door. There was no such thing as privacy.
Yeah.
And a big reason that they didn't want to charge me anything is because they thought that gave them a right to search my stuff. And they did. Just like they hacked the email.
Yeah. So the whole rule is that if you live under the same house, under the same roof, then you're basically your father's property.
Exactly.
He can spy on you and stuff like that. So I think that's why he thought, unless you live in a crazy state in the United States, but I'm not an expert on that. But I guess it was his application of the Watchtower law that as long as you were living under his roof, he had a legal right to spy on you and read everything.
Yep.
I think that's what it is. But I can give you one example. A friend of mine, he had a daughter. The daughter got pregnant and with a worldly boy. And this worldly boy was just a kid, but he wanted to be, the father of the child. So the Jehovah Witness father allowed his daughter, who was a minor, live with a boyfriend in the basement. So you have the mother, it's minor, the grandchild, is also minor, obviously, but he would be the legal guardian of his grandchild. Because if I have a 16-year-old daughter that gives birth, I'm the legal guardian of both.
Right.
So in this case, the daughter was almost a grown-up, and she was not a Jehovah Witness, didn't want to. And she had this guy, and they lived. So the elders came knocking and said, you will be disfellowshipped for allowing them to live under your roof. So unless you kick him out, so they basically told him to ruin this family because they were not married. He cannot force them to get married.
Well,
And
if
the
they were
girl
Jehovah's
is not old
Witnesses, the
enough to
elders
get
would force
married.
them to get married.
And they
Otherwise,
were not
they make them break
Jehovah's
up.
Witnesses. So they said, either you will be disfellowshipped, which would mean that it would destroy his family, or you have to destroy their family. And I have a legal mind, and at that time I was Jehovah Witness. I told him that he would section the house, because if the house had 2 flats with 2 separate doors, you can legally section it, so it's no longer a house. It's a
condominium.
apartment building. So there's a building with 2 condos. And if you live in a flat with several condos, you will not be disfellowshipped because the neighbor is fornicating. Just because you have the same roof, you're living under the same roof, but the house is legally sectioned. So this is my condo, and that's the neighbor's condo. He's a bad person. I will survive Armageddon and take his condo later, but that's a different story. So what he did, he sectioned the house into 2 sections, and then Jehovah was okay with it. So he was not disfellowshipped, thanks to my brilliant advice to section his flat.
And I'm like, so bizarre.
Why are we doing this? It was when I was, fading Pimo, and I felt like, why? Because
well, let's do $3,000 or $4,000 worth of legal work. Okay,
it's a lot of legal work to do this. So when the elders come and say, "Have you ruined your daughter's life yet?" No, I don't have to, because according to Norwegian legislation, this is now 2 separate deeds. This is the deed for my flat. This is the deed for the flat where my daughter is currently fornicating. And then, well, if there's 2 deeds, then it's no longer reproach to Jehovah's name. I wonder
if the elders were relieved or kind of frustrated, because he's still providing for his daughter.
Yeah, but it's such a ridiculous religion. If you make fun of the Pharisees, Jehovah Witnesses love to make fun of the Pharisees, but I can tell you that the Pharisees still exist, and they describe Jehovah Witnesses as extremists. They do. The Pharisees still exist, and they describe Jehovah Witnesses as extremists.
And they are. Oh, goodness. Kind of like that story you just told. I was allowed to date living under his roof, but I wasn't allowed to bring them there unless somebody else was home. Okay, so my car broke down and he let me take his car home because I had to work the next day and he didn't. So my dad sees his car parked in the driveway when he gets home all late and wrong. I'm in my room asleep. Next thing I know, my door is flying open in my room and the light gets turned on. He's like, "Not in my house." And I'm like, "What, not in your house? I'm the only one here." He's like, "Oh, I saw his car." I'm like, "Shoot, what were you going to do if you walked in and he was there?" Like, who
Like
the
he thought you were having sex and he was gonna stop you.
I guess, but what was he going to
Yeah,
do if
but
he was
even
there?
even if you were having sex and he walks in, that would be brazen conduct. It's like they have. Yeah, you're not supposed to walk. Haven't they read the Bible? You know Noah. Noah, he was a prophet of God with a hangover and cursed all the black people. You know, in the Bible, they say that Noah cursed black people. So Jehovah used a drunk man with a hangover, lying naked in the tent, to give. It's almost like it's made up, but it says that Noah was drunk and he was showing his shame. Why would you be ashamed of sleeping naked? But he was showing his shame because a section of the human body is shameful, even though it's created by Jehovah. And then,
even though your whole role in life is dependent on that part.
Yeah, Ham laughed at his father, thought it was funny. And then the other brothers, Japhet and Sem, they walked backwards into the tent to cover their father's shame. And then when this drunk moron, that 700-year-old drunk moron, wake up and he has a hangover and they get to hear what he said, he cursed his brother. And that's why black people are a race of servant.
Oh, God.
You know, but the thing is, if your father would have learned something from that, he would not just barge into someone's room to look at their shame.
So I know.
So technically, your father's offspring are a race of servants. So
I'm pretty sure that's
Almighty
the thing.
Bob. Huh?
I'm pretty sure we were treated more like possessions than people.
Yeah.
We were more possessions than people. Like, he would rather try and potentially kill me than let me be a human and make mistakes. Like, we were more possessions than people.
Yeah.
But that's the way it is for a lot of women and like any kind of fundamentalist or extreme version of Christianity. So
yeah, like we have some Muslim religions. Okay, so obviously I just have to state that not all Muslims are the same, of course, but some of them have this honor culture that our family has to keep the honor, and that often translates that we treat our daughters like objects that we control. You can't
they
go
can't just
here,
be humans with the body. They gotta wear a tent.
You can't be alone on the street. You cannot go to party alone. You cannot have a white boyfriend. You cannot do this. You cannot do that. You marry the guy we tell you. You date him when we tell you. And there's a chaperone. They are very, very, very much controlled, some of them. And some of them married against their will. And I read stories about that. I've been interviewed myself and for this. But I don't know. They cut my story, but there's a very talented Swedish journalist with that background. She came from Syria. So I read her book, and you read those stories, and it's like, is this happening in Sweden? Like it sounds like it would be happen in some really, really, really backward part of Saudi Arabia. But it's happening in Sweden. You can see how Swedish government are very naive and very afraid of being referred to as racist. So they just let people get away with everything because they're slightly browner than me. So I don't know why Scandinavians have white guilt. We're actually being kind of nice white people because we actually still live where our ancestors lived. We didn't steal this place. We came here when the ice melted. We stole it from the woolly mammoth.
Oh gosh!
But they still have this super big white guilt, and it's kind of, well, it's a nice thing, they're well-meaning, but sometimes crazy religion just see we can use this to act like assholes and get away with it. Jehovah Witnesses, now we really have them on the defensive, and they are really good at now describing themselves as a minority. You have to remember that we're a minority. Yeah,
trigger word.
Minority. People often forget the hardship of being Caucasian in Scandinavia. Sometimes the government hands them millions of dollars for free government funding, and then when the apostates explain that Watchtower do not fulfill the requirement to receive an envelope of cash, we are persecuted.
It's not a human right to be given millions of dollars.
A minority. They are Caucasians in Scandinavia.
And it's not a human right to be given millions of dollars.
It's not a human right to get an envelope of cash. And the fact that they have been lying for years, they are not even asked to pay back the money they got last year.
And I think they should be paying it back.
When they ask for the money, they lie about the fact. And it's easy, it's obvious that they are lying. Like they say, we don't baptize children. That's a lie. So you say, please give me $1 million US. And by the way, we don't baptize children. So
I wonder if they stopped baptizing children, how much slower their growth would be. Because by the time you're like 18 and you're in that rebellion stage, you might not want to do it.
No.
But when you get baptized when you're like 9, 10, 12, I mean, you're very impressionable.
When your subconscious know what you have to lose, if you think your own thought, your subconscious will block it out of self-preservation. Every time if you have a bad habit and you think like, oh, I should do this today, or nah, do it tomorrow, all these automatic thoughts you have. And when you know that there's a huge dangerous thing, if you think this thought, your subconscious will block the thought. So when they get them baptized and they have this hanging over you, you're very motivated to stay a Jehovah Witness.
Yep.
And it's the wrong motivation.
Yeah. And I lost my thought, but like they're very I really don't think they get very far very fast if they stop baptizing kids under the age of 18. And the fact that they even lied about that, when you can walk into any Kingdom Hall, how old were you when you baptized? And the younger you were, the prouder you are.
Yeah.
Like that's in every funeral talk I've ever been to. My great grandmother got baptized at 6 years old.
Yeah.
They put that in her eulogy. Like she's been a witness since she was 6 years old. Like she got baptized. And I'm like, I know that was like a long time ago, but they still have this like, it's another notch in your belt if you get baptized at a young age. Like and one of the emperor's sons was baptized at 9. And he was a ministerial servant at 9.
At 9?
He was walking around
I'm jealous.
At 9 years old. I'm telling you, he ran the congregation.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a really weird elder that got away with a lot. And then your father really were lashing on. This is my guy. And we call him emperor. That elder
like the
got your father jumped through hoops.
The problems with the culture of Jehovah's Witnesses, like if you wanted the poster child of the problems with that culture, it was this guy. And he was the head of the congregation. If you wanted the poster child for everything wrong, it was him, Brother Emperor. A 9-year-old ministerial servant son. Really? I was in service with them one time and she was lecturing her son about picking up funny rocks out of somebody's driveway. He's like, what's wrong with that? Like, he didn't even understand that, like, stealing stuff is completely, he hadn't even comprehended that, but he was baptized.
Yeah, well, we can't blame him. He was a kid.
He was a kid. Yeah, he was wildly influenced. Good God.
Yeah.
But yeah, Brother Emperor was he's the poster child. But it's like if the same problems that I had with him are like the general things that you see throughout the entire ex-Jehovah's Witness community and the Jehovah's Witness community. Like, ugh.
Yeah, so
Like I feel like I got like all the bad stories just out of that one guy. All the bad things that all the ex-Jehovah's Witnesses go through. Because he was even one that persecuted actual victims of CSA. Like when they acted out, he looked at them like they were the scum of the earth. Actual current victims, like 16-year-old girls.
Yeah.
And because they did not act appropriately, they were the problem.
Yeah.
He was the epitome of everything that's wrong with the culture.
So you heard about Pennsylvania? There's several Jehovah's Witnesses arrested.
Yeah.
And I known about this since 2019. And
keeping secrets from us.
Yeah.
You kind of have to.
That's why I was told, because I was not supposed to tell anyone.
Yeah, no biggie.
Who is headquartered in Pennsylvania? Is there a certain tower that's headquartered there? Watchtower Bible and Tract Society is headquartered in Pennsylvania. So some very qualified apostates have been working, because it's not enough just to call to the government and say, pedophiles are bad and you should look at Watchtower. You need to really explain and show, because there are already police trying their best to catch bad guys, and they're hopefully doing a good job. So you really have to educate the government and say, this is more than isolated cases. There is a structure,
it's a systemic thing.
When that can, not all witnesses are child abusers and all of that. I was not. So, but it's a structure that creates a loophole and a whirlpool.
A self-perpetuating cycle. It creates a self-perpetuating cycle on a systemic level.
Yeah.
Lots of big words there.